Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the Complete Street Commission's August 13th regular commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating in accordance with public health guidelines. I would like to introduce Complete Streets Commission members and city staff present. I'm Vice Chair Sally Cole. Commissioners present include Jackie Sebrian, Meredith Bergen-Bailey, Matthew Raskoff, Scott Herscher, and Kevin Rennie. Chair Athena Erikomos is absent. City staff present include Katrine Maki, Senior Transportation Planner. Katrine, would you please provide instructions to the Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Vice Chair Cole and members of the Complete Street Commission. Welcome everyone to the August 13th Complete Street Commission meeting, and thank you for attending. For members of the public who wish to provide public comment for any item on tonight's agenda, after the chair calls for public comment on that item, if you're in person, we ask that you fill out the speaker card available at the back table and return that to the clerk's desk. If you are participating virtually, attendees on Zoom may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. If you are participating in person, please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Under reports and announcements, city staff and commission members may communicate general information of interest regarding matters within the jurisdiction of the commission. No commission discussion or action can occur on any of the presented items. Katrine, do you have any reports and announcements for us?
I do not, but Commissioner Raskoff does. So I will.
Wonderful. Commissioner Raskoff, do you have a report or announcement?
I did have one small item, which was a suggestion based on a ride that I took today, actually, and just observing the progress on the Middle Avenue project, which is very exciting to see. As some of you know, I've been in Europe for the past 4 months. Jasper and I have been riding around in Berlin. So I'm full of ideas for improvements based on the infrastructure that I've seen, which is, world class. So I'm not yet ready to do a full report and download based on all of that, but just in observing, the small, item today. I don't know if you can see the screen. It should be in front of each of us today. It was about kind of the interaction of these lanes with the trash collection. And I was riding up middle, noticing how the buffers are being reconstructed on the north side of the street, but they're still there on the south side of the street. And the paint job is kind of underway, and the east side of middle, but this is the previous paint on the west side. But you can see like the trash bins require the cyclist to navigate around them. The suggestion that I had was very simply to propose to residents that they move the trash bins into the buffer zone. And if they did that, it would not require the cyclist to go around them and to avoid collision with them. In fact, they would form a kind of informal separation between the cyclists and the drivers, like a kind of temporary bollard, you could imagine, just for the days, obviously, when the trash bins are out. But would also, as Jasper pointed out, make life a little bit easier for Recology, who would not have to reach into the bike lane to grab the bin with their robotic arms, but could instead stay in the lane, which is what I think they're meant to do, put their hazards on, and then grab the bins from a closer distance. So it's actually a bigger issue on University and some of the other streets that don't have as wide a lane, but I find myself on University kind of winding around these on trash collections day. Ringwood's another one. And so if there were no buffer zone, it would you probably couldn't indicate with paint, but you could, but just a little bit of resident education could, I thought, improve things at no cost to parking or convenience. So that was just my tiny little idea, just based on today's ride.
Now, I just want to get Katrine's advice. It says no commission discussion or action can occur, but can we ask clarifying questions or anything like that?
There's going to be a discussion. Nope.
Oh,
Yep.
Okay. So I would encourage Meredith to share her comments, or any other commissioners with Matthew separately from from the meeting.
And
I
then we
have-
can agendize it at a future meeting if it needs.
Yes,
commission
you
discussion,
can,
sure.
work with Katrine to decide whether to agendize it based on the comments you get from us.
But we're allowed to talk about all range of things that are not on the agenda, right? Like if it's a thing that's traffic related and not on our, not agendized, there's nothing preventing us from having conversations.
No, I
about it,
think we
right?
can't because the public doesn't know what's going to be discussed. Like,
Well,
for
and
example,
that would be the problem with sharing the comments with Matthew independently, right? So that's my question is, if it's not agendized and we're not discussing it here because it's not agendized, does a discussion with Matthew later?
but the discussion isn't among all of us.
If it's one-on-one, then it's,
But what if it's one-on-one with Meredith?
then we have
and
to be
one-on-one-
careful.
Right, it's just that.
So
like-
let's just decide. So who is going to, of the group, let's not do a quorum, right? So 2 people will have discussions with Matthew about this. Do you want to? Meredith and you?
I just have some thoughts.
Scott lives on middle.
Okay.
right? And Meredith.
Perfect.
Very good.
And I will refrain from my discussion. And then you will decide whether
and-
to agendize it
Very good.
based on pent up discussion.
That sounds
Just a
good.
Okay, look how well we resolved that one. Thank you, Commissioner Raskoff, for your observations and the photo. Okay, then, let's move to public comment. Under public comment, members of the public may address the Complete Streets Commission on any subject that is not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once for a limit of 3 minutes. You are not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful. The commission cannot act on items that are not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues that are brought up under public comment, other than to provide general information. Katrine, could you please call for public comment, general public comment?
for virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press star 9 to raise your virtual hand. If you're participating in person, please fill out a speaker card on the back table, bring it to the clerk's desk, and please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. We have no one in person and there is no one online. So having no one in queue for public comment, I return the meeting to the chair.
Okay, I'm just going to give it a pause in case anyone raises their virtual hand. All right. Well, then we'll move on to regular business. In this section under regular business, the commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require commission approval. The first regular business item tonight is to accept the Complete Streets Commission minutes from our last meeting on June 11th, 2025. Was there any clarification from the commission before I take public comment?
I did notice on the notes that it said that Chair Cole both opened and ended the meeting, and I would like to suggest that that is updated to Chair Arakomos.
Oh, thank you for noticing that. How strange. All right, I had one quick comment on it, which is at the very bottom of the first page. It says, action by acclamation, the commission selected Commissioner Sebrian to report out on the work plan and Chair Arakomos to be present for the work plan, but it doesn't mention that they're doing this in front of City Council, which I think is highly relevant. So if you could, potentially my suggestion would be for the staff report, Katrine, for this meeting, at the last paragraph under background on the first page, it says the CSC selected Commissioner Sebrian to attend the August 12th City Council meeting to report out on blah, 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 and Chair Arakomos attended a City Council meeting to report out. So maybe just paste that language over. I just want to make it clear to anyone in the public who might be reading the minutes that Commissioner Sebrian and Commissioner Arakomos would be present at the City Council meetings for those purposes. Okay, that's all that I had. So, Katrine, would you please call for, if I have nothing else from the commission members, Katrine, would you please call for public comments on this item, accepting the Complete Streets Commission minutes for June 11th, 2025?
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press star 9 to raise your virtual hand. If you are participating in person, please fill out the speaker card from the back table, bring it to the clerk's desk, and please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. I have no one in the queue for public comment. I can return the meeting to the chair.
All right, then, do I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes with the revision proposed for the June 11th, 2025 Complete Streets Commission meeting? Okay, Commissioner Sebrian has a motion to accept the minutes. Anyone have a second? And Commissioner Bergen Bailey has a second. I would like to take a vote on the motion. All those in favor say, and raise your hand, say aye. Excellent. We have a unanimous aye. Unanimous accept. Okay. Wonderful. So we are moving on to E2. We have some special guests. Tonight, under regular business, we are getting an update from the South County South County Multimodal Strategy Project. We have with us San Mateo County Transportation Authority staff, Sue Ellen Atkinson, manager. Which one is Sue Ellen? Hi, Sue Ellen. And, Planning and Fund Management, excuse me. She's the manager of Planning and Fund Management for San Mateo County Transportation Authority. Will present the item. And who is the other person we have?
Amy Linehan, I'm a Government Community Affairs Officer for the TA.
Great, thank you. So Sue Ellen and Amy, thank you for your time and for being here. We look forward to your presentation.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us here. Again, Sue Ellen Atkinson and Amy Linehan. We're with the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, and we're really happy to be here to chat about the South County Multimodal Strategy. Next slide. So tonight we'll be giving a quick introduction about the background of the project and then going a little bit more into what the South County Multimodal Strategy is, and then some information about our community engagement for the project, and then any questions that the commission may have. Next slide. We can go ahead. All right. So I think many of us are probably familiar with 101 looking very similar to this photo. And that is why the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, or the TA, as we're typically called, began a program called 101 Corridor Connect to evaluate ways to reduce congestion like what we see on the screen on US 101. Next slide. So 101 Corridor Connect is a collaborative program that's really aimed at identifying and prioritizing projects that can relieve congestion on 101, which is a pretty big ask. It's not easy and takes a lot of different ways of looking at it. So 101 Corridor Connect looks beyond just the highway and looks at the area around the freeway corridor and really looks at ways of getting around that go beyond driving. So we're talking about biking, walking, transit. In some areas of the county, ferry is an option, carpooling, et cetera. And really considering the mobility needs and options for the corridor as a whole. We're working on the 101 Corridor Connect program with partners that include the City and County Association of Governments, or CCAG, Caltrans, cities like Menlo Park, transit agencies, and San Mateo County. Next slide. So the way that we are looking at reducing congestion through the 101 Corridor Connect program is by tying together different modes of transportation or different ways of getting around. So like you see here at the Millbrae Intermodal Station, tying together options like taking the train and then transferring to a shuttle, or vice versa, taking an e-bike like shown in the picture, and then taking the train. So making ways of getting around other than driving easier, more accessible, and safer for those who choose to do so. And by making those options more available for commuters, we can work to reduce congestion along the freeway in some ways. Next slide. The 101 Corridor Connect program really was born out of a Caltrans plan, the 101 South Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan. And that Caltrans plan didn't just look at San Mateo County, it looked at 101 within San Francisco County and then Santa Clara County as well. And it looked at and identified projects that Caltrans had identified along 101 that could reduce congestion for that 3-county corridor area. It didn't look beyond the freeway, and it also didn't prioritize those projects for counties to know how to move forward. And so that's where 101 Corridor Connect comes in for San Mateo County, by taking a closer look at the 101 corridor and then expanding that to areas around the corridor within a mile, for some of our projects within a quarter mile, and looking at all ways of getting around, not just on the freeway, to see what the options are to reduce congestion through other projects. The first initiative, or the first planning project under the 101 Corridor Connect program, is the multimodal strategies, which we're here to talk about tonight. Next slide. The overarching goals of the 101 Corridor Connect program that really filter down to all of the projects is to create a safe, connected, sustainable, and inclusive transportation network for San Mateo County. Next slide. All right. So with that background on 101 Corridor Connect, we're here tonight to talk about the multimodal strategies, which again is the first initiative under our 101 Corridor Connect program. We have 3 different multimodal strategies: North County, Mid County, and South County. So multimodal strategy might be a new term for a lot of you. And really what it is a planning document to identify and prioritize congestion management projects within San Mateo County. What we're doing is looking at the 101 corridor and also looking within a mile around the 101 corridor. So looking at all of the roadways that connect to and across the freeway, and identifying projects and prioritizing projects for all ways of getting around. So that includes driving, walking, biking, transit, carpooling, et cetera. We are developing multimodal strategies for that full 101 corridor within San Mateo County, but we've broken it up into 3 separate strategies. So again, North County, Mid County, and South County. We found that different areas of the county have different priorities and different needs. And so we wanted to be able to develop strategies that went more into depth in each area of the county. Next slide. So probably preaching to the choir here, but multimodal for the terms of this project means different ways of getting around. So scooters, e-scooters, bikes, e-bikes, walking, mobility devices, carpooling, transit, et cetera. Next slide. And again, we are now in our 3rd of 3 multimodal strategies. So we started up in North County. We do like to go north to south. We're a little traditional that way. So we started up in North County, and we're expecting completion of the North County multimodal strategy this fall. And we'll be releasing that North County strategy for public review in the next few weeks. We then moved to Mid County, which included Burlingame, San Mateo, Foster City, San Carlos, et cetera. And we will be completing the Mid County multimodal strategy later this winter, which brings us now to the South County. So for South County, we're looking at the area including Redwood City, Menlo Park, East Palo Alto, and the town of Atherton. So now we are looking really closely at that South County area, again within a mile of the freeway during this time frame. So we just started the South County multimodal strategy about 2 months ago or so, and we'll be aiming to finish that in early 2026. Next slide. So again, we're looking at the 101 corridor, but we're also looking beyond it. And we're looking at all ways that people get around. So I've already said all the different ways several times tonight. But the one key item about all of the ways of getting around is that they really closely align to funding programs that the TA has available. The TA is charged with distributing the half-cent sales tax measures in San Mateo County, so Measure A and half of Measure W. And all of those programs align with our various modes of transportation that we're looking at within the multimodal strategies. Next slide. So in developing the multimodal strategy, we're not starting from scratch. Our first step that we took was identifying all of the projects that cities like yours have already identified within that 1 mile area around 101. So we've looked at all of the plans that have been adopted by local cities and towns, plans that have been adopted by CCAG, Caltrans, our Metropolitan Transportation Commission, et cetera, and pulled out all of the projects in that 1 mile area, and then evaluated those projects to pull out the ones that had option for, or had the opportunity for reducing congestion. Next slide. As you can imagine, it's a really, really, really long list because all of our local jurisdictions have been very busy in creating plans that have really great projects identified. So our next slide, next step is getting community input and doing data analysis to help us determine what the community priorities are within the South County area. And that in turn will help us to prioritize those projects. So of that really long list of projects within a mile of the freeway, we're going to, at the end of the multimodal strategy, have a top 20 priority list within the South County area. And all of those projects will be priority projects under that larger 101 Corridor Connect umbrella. And then as the final part of the multimodal strategy, we'll have an implementation plan. And for multimodal strategy, it is a planning document. So for us, delivery or implementation means identifying ways to move those projects forward, typically through identifying funding sources and identifying what the next steps for those projects are. Next step. All right, I think if you click 4 times, there we go. So the multimodal strategy, when it's complete, will have 4 separate components. The first is existing conditions, which is data analysis, figuring out how people are getting around, what existing bike, pedestrian, transit, roadway, et cetera, networks are already existing in South County, and really how people are using them and what the concerns are. Second is that project inventory, where we pulled out all of the projects within a mile of the freeway. Again, an incredibly long list that right now our cities are going through and helping us ground truth. Third is a section devoted to the community engagement and stakeholder engagement that we're doing, which Amy will speak about in a moment. And then fourth is that prioritization of projects, the top 20 priority projects within South County, and the implementation plan for those top 20 projects. Next slide. So for the South County area, again, we're looking at areas south of Redwood City. So that includes Redwood City, Menlo Park, town of Atherton, East Palo Alto, and then unincorporated North Fair Oaks area. So it's a rough map, but you can get the general idea of what portion of Menlo Park is within the study area. And again, we expect to finish the South County multimodal strategy in early 2026. Next slide. So as mentioned, we started just a couple months ago doing the existing conditions and doing that project inventory, coming through all the plans and identifying projects. Right now, we are very much in the thick of our community and stakeholder engagement. And then we'll be moving forward to use that data analysis and community feedback to help us prioritize those projects and move forward into the final multimodal strategy. Next slide. And now I get to stop talking. You'll get to hear from Amy on our community engagement.
Thanks, Sue Ellen. Again, thank you, Commissioners, for having us tonight. My name is Amy Linehan. I'm a Government Community Affairs Officer for the TA. I'm going to be speaking a bit about the stakeholder and community engagement program that we've put together for the multimodal strategy. Sue Ellen mentioned that community and stakeholder feedback is a really important ingredient in the strategy because at the end of the day, it's really important to the TA that we're putting forth and supporting projects that are aligned with the community, what the community wants to see, and what the community priorities are. So this strategy features a robust public participation process. Our engagement approach includes a mix of digital tools and in-person outreach to ensure that we're having broad and inclusive participation from the community and our stakeholders across South County. If you click a few times, all of those tools will come up. We have set up a unique project webpage where members of the public and stakeholders can find a fact sheet, FAQs, information about how they can provide feedback. There's a link to our survey that I'll talk about, and a lot of details about how they can get involved in the project. The main feedback loop that we've set up for this project is an online survey where we take people through a number of questions, asking them about their experience traveling along the 101 and what maybe we could do to change that experience to maybe get them to think about not getting in their car and maybe taking a bike or taking the train or taking the bus. It's really about what are your pain points along your route and what can we do to ease those pain points. We are hosting a number of pop-up events. We'll have one in each city throughout the county, or this section of the county. We were actually at the Menlo Park Farmers Market on Sunday, and we did get some great engagement with members of the community. They had great ideas about what their priorities were and places along the route where they thought there could be some improvements. What we do during these pop-up events is there's 2 ways people can participate. We have a dot exercise. Everybody loves a dot exercise. where they get to tell us about what their overarching priorities are for multimodal travel. And then we put a map on the table where people can put Post-its on the map to tell us about those specific intersections that they maybe feel a little bit unsafe or unsure about, maybe walking or taking a bike, or even issues they're having with transit along that corridor. So these pop events really allow Sue Ellen and I an opportunity to engage with members of the community and really put that in-person aspect to the project instead of them just taking an online survey. The survey is multilingual. It is mobile optimized. Anybody who maybe doesn't have access to the internet or has some other challenges, our customer service staff is set up to help members of the public who call, take them through the survey. They can fill out the survey for them. They can do it multilingual. So there are a number of opportunities for people to engage with the project team. We're also partnering with community-based organizations to help gather input from hard-to-reach communities, including people with low-income households. We're mainly doing this through small focus groups where members of our staff meet with CBO groups and talk one-on-one with members of the community who may not be inclined to come to a pop-up or a council meeting or participate in the survey. And it gives us that insight into those harder to reach communities throughout South County. We are conducting stakeholder presentations like we're doing tonight, and we're hosting meetings with a technical project working group that we set up with staff through each city in South County has a staff on the technical working group that we work with closely to get their feedback on the projects that are included in the strategy, as well as some of that community feedback that we're getting, just to make sure we're working closely with them and making sure that the strategy is done in working with partnership with city staff. That's really important to us. One thing that we started doing in Mid-County was we posted temporary bus stop signs at the top highest ridership stops in each city. The stop features a QR code with a direct link to the survey. People can just, while they're waiting for the bus, they can take the survey. It makes participating easy and accessible for those riders that we're trying to get feedback from. As I mentioned, all of our outreach and engagement efforts are conducted in multiple language, really to try to reflect the diversity of the communities that we're serving. Next slide, please. Our formal community engagement program started toward the end of July. We're moving through the month of August. During this period, we are going to be carrying out all those activities I mentioned on the previous slide, including our project webpage, stakeholder presentations, CBO meetings, the online survey, and pop-up booths at community events. After the engagement period ends at the end of this month, the project team is going to begin developing that prioritization and implementation plan that Sue Ellen mentioned to keep the project moving into the fall. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that survey that we've launched. Really, that is aimed at getting feedback from the public about what would improve their travel experience along the 101 corridor. So they're asked to prioritize anything but roadway improvements, more improved bike scooter lanes, improved access to transit stations, more frequent and reliable transit service, affordable transit options. It really gives us an opportunity to triangulate what the community's priorities are and align them with those projects that we're getting from the plans that the cities have developed. Feedback gathered through our in-person events and our online survey is going to help us prioritize those projects and shape a long-term transportation investment strategy in South County. There really are more projects than there is funding. So this input is going to be critical in helping us as the TA ensure that resources are directed where they're needed most, because there's too much to fund, there's not enough money, and we want to make sure that the funding is going where it's needed and where the public is telling us they want us to put it. That's really important to us. Next slide, please. In addition to getting your feedback tonight, really we're hoping we can get the commission to share our survey. We have a number of tools that we're happy to share with staff, social media posts, a newsletter that's available in multiple languages. It says on there that the survey is open until August 16th. I actually just extended it. It's going to be open until the end of the month. We wanted to give people a little more opportunity to engage. We scheduled another presentation. So I wanted to make sure that there was a good timeline for people to be able to share the survey out and to get more participation. As a little carrot, we have added a $100 grocery gift card for people. Anybody who fills out the survey, completes the survey, is eligible. They're entered into basically a lottery. We pull a number at the end of the survey, and they win a $100 grocery gift card. We started doing that in Mid-County, and it was a good way to sort of boost our participation level. It's an incentive. I think it's working pretty well. Again, if you're interested in sharing the survey, I have resources that I can share with the staff that can help you do that. And if you think there's any other group in Menlo Park that we should be presenting to, please let me know. I'm always open to feedback about the stakeholders that we're reaching out to, or the places that we're going and the people that we're seeing. I did get some good ideas on Sunday about who I should be talking to, including this commission. I was able to tell the person I was speaking to, well, I think we're going there on Wednesday. So stay tuned. And that is the end of our formal presentation. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sue Ellen and Amy. What we're going to do now, excuse me, is to just ask the commission if they have any clarifying questions about the presentation before we take public comment. So do any commissioners have any clarifying questions for Amy or Sue Ellen?
I have one.
Yes, Commissioner Seaborn. Oh, Commissioner Rennie.
Thank you for the presentation. It was lovely. And yes, it was nice to see you on Sunday. My clarifying question was, when you say projects, are those studies that have been completed? Is that just whiteboard ideas, or what does that actually mean? Thank you.
That's a great question. What we mean by a project is at the end of the day, really individual lines on the map in your adopted city active transportation plans in the Caltrans District 4 bike plan, CCAG plans, et cetera. So they are improvements that have been identified that may be in various stages of being completed, but generally lines on the map right now.
Okay. Commissioner Seaborn.
In your stakeholder groups, one of the groups I consider like probably is the private schools, really, like Beechwood specifically in the Bellhaven neighborhood, only because it seems to draw from much wider than Menlo Park. So they are like, and most of the other, like we have quite a few private schools. And so they are definitely like people who are coming here from outside Menlo Park often. I don't know that they have a lot of other options besides driving, depending on where they're coming from and because they have kids. But in terms of looking at the wider multimodal thing, it would be interesting to find out how we could get fewer parents driving their kids to private schools. Age dependent, of course. But anyway, it was just a thought.
We did give an update to the superintendents, but I imagine that does not include private schools. So that's a great feedback. We'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Do any other commissioners have clarifying questions? Okay. I had a few. No one else? Okay. Tagging on to what Kevin said about the projects, when you get to that stage of creating the strategy and you're evaluating the projects, I heard sort of existing projects, but I wonder if you're also looking at proposed projects. For example, in Menlo Park, we have a great proposal on the table for a Willow Road Bike and Ped Safety Project, and the staff and the consultant presented to this commission in April, and this was the second time we'd seen the project. We thought they made really tremendous design improvements. Would that be the kind of thing you'd be looking at in a proposed state?
Yes, all of the projects that we are looking at in the inventory and ultimately is the prioritized list of projects. By and large, they're proposed.
Oh, okay.
In the inventory stage, what we're doing is, we've culled together all of the projects that have been proposed and identified in adopted plans, documents, et cetera, and first sent those to city staff, local jurisdiction staff, and asked them, have any of these been removed for any reason.
I see.
Have any of these been completed? And so then they should be taken off. But yes, by and large, they're all proposed projects.
Okay.
It's
Thank you
by
for
saying that we're using existing projects, it means the TA is not looking at a roadway and saying, we should install a class 4 bike lane here. We're looking to what the cities and local agencies have already
Identified.
suggested.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. And then just tagging on to what Commissioner Seabrian said about and thank you for extending the survey. I think it's really important. I think outreach obviously is really important. It's something we hear a lot about from different entities, what kind of outreach strategies they have, and our ears perk up because you can never do a good enough job at outreach, but it is really critical to this project, clearly. So thank you. I just had a couple questions about that. Like Commissioner Seabrian, I was thinking about schools because we focus so much on Willow and what's about to happen with regard to Willow and traffic and circulation. And I know when we were looking at Coleman, it seemed that a lot of students, Meredith was going to know too, and so was Jackie, but are commuting across Willow and then down Coleman to MA, for example, things like that. So I thought to myself, should we be talking to MA students maybe who do that commute? They might have some feedback for, or might be able to fill out the survey. We actually have had MA students reach out previously to get involved with Complete Streets. So just a thought.
So I can tell you that all of this, the school districts that we've shared the information with have been encouraged to share that with their network, their parents, their PTAs. Whether or not that disseminates to the students,
Yeah.
the hope is that it does.
Yeah.
But we have a dedicated members of our staff that actually work with the school districts. So they've been making sure that this information is distributed as widely as they can.
Okay. Excellent.
So the hope is that the students are also engaging, but I think the adults are getting the information first to disseminate to their students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
One comment I was coming to the meeting with today after reviewing your slides earlier was I appreciate that the survey has been extended to the end of the month, but I know in our school district, the community news section of our newsletter doesn't go live until September 7th. So I'm wondering if maybe there's some wiggle room there. I don't know that I've seen anything from our school district about this at this point. Commissioner Rennie is also a parent in our school district. Anyway, just a thought. I wonder if it would be possible to extend. I guess that would be 2 more weeks.
The reason that I extended it was we had added a presentation. I wanted to get the survey numbers up a little bit. So the engagement timeline really depends on the kind of engagement we're having. We can certainly take that into consideration when we meet as a team. And think about the timeline of the overall project. There are some deadlines that are included in this, but we're happy to consider suggestions for the timeline.
Okay. Just a few more clarifying questions about outreach. Other people on the commission may know this better than I do, but I know there are a lot of active bike groups. So if anyone has any suggestions for bike groups, maybe share those with Katrine. She can pass them on. And the other thing was Bellhaven Community Center. I'm sure you've thought of that one. Okay. Because when you said farmers market, I thought other side of 101, definitely the community center in Bellhaven. Okay. My last, see if there's your comments or, oh yes, go ahead, Commissioner Rennie.
So the largest employer in Menlo Park is Meta. Have you guys reached out to them? Because most of those people don't live in Menlo Park, and for sure they take. Oh, can you hear me? Sorry, 84 or 101. So again, I'll repeat. Largest employer in Menlo Park, Meta. What outreach have you done to them? Part 2, have you sent? I've seen it on in Menlo this survey, but
Yeah.
Almanac News or
I was just thinking.
any other distribution that way. And then 2, during the summertime, which the survey has gone out, most people are traveling or distracted with many other things. And I was even going to say end of October for something like that. I know it pushes your timeline, but I know I think other sections of this north, mid, south connector probably got more feedback than you've gotten already. At least that's my assumption. And I just went on the website and just even like pinpoints and stuff like that. It looks like only 12 people have commented. So I think we could help with that.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say, and maybe drive more information so we can get the public feedback and help you with that. Thank you.
So I appreciate that. There's a cadence that I typically engage with where I push out information in buckets. So we did do a beginning push, and then we'll do another one to try to get people engaged toward the end of the outreach. I acknowledge that it is summer, and we acknowledge that going in, people are not paying attention as much as they do maybe during the fall, but people are starting to come back to town, schools are starting. So we will ramp it up a little bit. There's more social media posts that go out. I'll send the newsletter text out again, more newsletter blasts. I have a number that go out to our stakeholder groups. Facebook is included in that outreach. And I believe we did offer to meet with them. I haven't gotten a response yet, but I will continue to engage with them to make sure that they're afforded an opportunity to meet with us. But yes, it is summer. It's a little bit slower, but it's starting to pick up. And I know that cycle, so I make sure that we pump it out, that we ramp up the outreach a little bit in these last couple of weeks.
Thank you. Any other clarifying questions? I just want to make sure that commissioners know that after we call for public comment, I will ask if there's any further commission discussion or feedback. But if there are no more clarifying questions, I'll ask Katrine to call for public comments on this item.
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. If you are participating in person, please fill out the speaker card from the back table, bring it to the clerk's desk, and please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. There is no one in queue for public comment, and I'll return the meeting to the chair.
All right. Then we will see if there's any further commission discussion or feedback on the project itself, the 101 corridor approach, anything from the discussions that you want to provide feedback on.
I had a few comments.
Yes, Commissioner Escott.
So I filled out the survey, but I thought it might be good just to raise some of the issues, maybe see if there's any topics that other people want to discuss or to disagree with. So I have a few items. I use the Bay Trail all the time, multimodal user, also Caltrain user, VTA user. Like I'm the audience for the strategy. I would say on the Bay Trail and the access for alternative modes, the trail itself is great. There are some gaps in it, but getting to and from it is the major issue for Menlo Park residents, I would say. And almost all of the crossings, actually all of the crossings of Bayfront and 101 are extremely dangerous and harrowing, and I would not recommend them to anybody but the most experienced cyclists. I would never ride that with a child. So I'm thinking of Whipple Avenue, Alpine Avenue. I see Willow Road's already been flagged on the map as an area of concern. I would underscore that too. Every single crossing is dangerous. Even when there's a bridge, the bridge is often not very well designed for cyclists. Just in the approach, the angles are too tight. And they're basically unusable and you have to walk your bike. So that's, I would say, the #1 issue in terms of alternative modes on this corridor in the 1 mile radius of 101. #2, I would say, I don't know if you're following the Seamless Bay Area project and the efforts to support easier transfers among the different transportation systems, but I recently took my daughter to an Oakland Ballers minor league baseball game. And just as an experiment, we tried to do it by public transportation. So we left from our house on this past Sunday at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we got to the game at 12:45. Wow. The trip was part of the adventure, and we intentionally chose to, we got to Caltrain, then we took the ferry. We had free transfer on the ferry, but on the ride home, but many of the transfers were actually not free. So there's no free transfer between VTA and Caltrain, VTA and BART. You get a 50-cent discount, but no free transfer. It's like, to me, like that's a very straightforward intervention. They're all on Clipper Card, but you're paying again, basically, for transfers. To cite my experience, like in Berlin just recently, it's one pass that's 59 euros covers the entire public transportation system of the whole country, not just the city of Berlin, the entire country, except express trains. Everything else is included in a 59 euro pass. Every transfer is included. That seems to be like very low-hanging fruit. We want to encourage public transportation. People are already paying. It's not like a, New York City free buses for everybody idea. This is just free transfers. Like that seems to be very straightforward, and the technology is already there with the Clipper Card. I would say on the 101 itself, we're still giving discounts for EVs in the express lane. I think we're past that point. I think there's too many EVs. I don't think they need the half price access to the express lane. That's just increasing congestion on the road. Like actual carpooling should get free access to the express lane. I'm not sure EVs deserve the discount at this point, just based on the number of EVs that are on the road. The bike link system is also, I think, not nearly sufficient for the need. So I have a bike link card attached to my Clipper card. I tried it in a few of the stations, didn't work. Doesn't fit a cargo bike. It's the system, it looks like it has not been updated, based on, the information on the cards in several years. Like that would really support intermodal transfer. I believe 40% of train trips in the Netherlands start or end on a bicycle. So people ride their bike to the station, get on a train, go where they need to go, and then they'll rent a bike on the other side, or they'll take, a bike with them. But that to me feels like a really great, potential strategy. If people felt more secure in locking up a bike, they would be willing to ride to the station, then use public transportation, and it would greatly increase the convenience. But there's, I think, only 3 or 4 bike link lockers in Menlo Park, handful of them in Palo Alto, but many of them not functional. So that to me is, pretty straightforward. And the last thing I would say is adding more lanes on 101 is definitely not the answer. And I'm familiar with the 101 SR 92 interchange direct connector project. I don't know if that is part of this strategy as well, but I know the city of San Mateo sent a letter from the mayor opposing the expansion of 101 and adding more lanes to 101. I think the evidence on induced demand is absolutely clear. And I hope we could get an equally strong statement from Menlo Park opposing any expansion of the highway. It'll just increase congestion, and there's just decades of data now showing that. It'll be a hugely expensive project. I believe it's $200 million that's proposed for that project. That does not seem worth it for a minor improvement in the usability and access, in theory, for carpool lanes, but I don't think it would achieve that. And $200 million could go way further in terms of alternative modes of transportation. Those are just a couple of comments. I put that in the survey as well.
Thank you. I love a well-informed comment. Thank you, Commissioner Raskoff. It's interesting when you showed that picture with the Caltrain and the bus and the bike, and they were all at a Caltrain station. It was like Millbrae or something in the slide presentation. I thought to myself, I really appreciate your focus on the 1 mile, within 1 mile of the freeway. And I think, here we go. And I think that you can, with that kind of focus and limited funds, but a lot of projects, you can get a lot done. So appreciate the focus. And then I looked at this, I remember thinking to myself, so much of 101 has to do with this corridor too, right? The train corridor and El Camino and all these other sort of roughly north-south corridors that, the more people we could get on the trains and the bikes, the better 101 would be. So that reminded me of what you were saying as well about the bike link issues.
So just to pick up on that also, it's really a shame with these brand new cars on Caltrain, they're not at the level of the platform. So I have a heavy e-bike. I can't actually carry it onto the train.
right.
It's too heavy. I rode it here tonight. It's a 90-pound bike. The European, trains are at grade. So you just roll it right on. It doesn't matter
That's
what
interesting.
e-bike you have.
Interesting.
I asked Caltrain and was informed you're not allowed to use they have ramps for wheelchair access to the train, but you can't use the ramps
For the bike.
for bikes, and the ramps are only available in the disabled areas, not in
Right,
the bike
right.
loading areas. So like that's a tiny little improvement in, Caltrain policy, and, a few ramps that were available, and then people would be able to roll a heavy e-bike onto the train, or a scooter, or anything that you couldn't manage yourself. My giant cargo bike might not fit in that train, but you could imagine other people more willing to bring e-bikes onto trains. So small stuff like that. You don't need $200 million. That's a $1 million idea to put a ramp in every single train station in California,
Well, can I tag on?
Of course.
It sounds like one of the disconnects is in understanding what kind of multimodal things people are showing up with, right? Like responding to the cargo bikes, right? We don't have bike racks for cargo bikes. We don't have but they're everywhere. And so being more sort of adjusting what we're doing to match how people are showing up at the trains would probably go a long way to
Mhm.
making it smoother and getting more people to try it.
It is really amazing how, yeah, those links really encourage behavior. It really is. So, well, let me see if I anything else. I did have one question, Sue Ellen. If there's anything you want to add, as you were talking, I thought, well, we're south. You went north, mid, south on your project. And I just wonder if there was any learnings from other towns that whose projects you've approved or prioritized in the north and mid counties that you think are best practices or are inspired by that you'd want to share with us?
I love that question. Thank you. And that was a goal while we were doing this, was to have an iterative process, but also pivot as needed. Most of the best practices and the changes were actually in the engagement section. Like as Amy mentioned, the bus stop signs were not something that we thought of in North County. And I think that we had gotten some feedback that that might be a good option. So we piloted it for Mid-County, and it bumped up the engagement and really like had a noticeable difference in terms of the number of responses that we got. So that's then something that we carried through in South County. And similarly, the grocery gift card, I'm so sorry, I'm talking about engagement. But the grocery gift card and having an incentive wasn't something that we did in North County, and realized that having that option available would be great to do. So again, we changed that for Mid-County. In terms of best practices for projects, things that, it's really great to go and have the stakeholder engagement and the community engagement, because that helps us to gain information about what's important to each of the segments of the community. And I mentioned that all of the segments of the county are very different. And we notice that because we use that feedback to help us prioritize the projects and to assign a weighting factor to what is most important in each segment of the community. And we've already seen, moving from north to mid, that the concerns in each area of the county are different. In one, safety was the highest concern, and in one, connectivity was the highest concern. So being able to be reactionary to what the most important issues are in each segment of the county has really helped us to hone in on that prioritization methodology and know that the way that we are ranking those projects really directly relates to what we're hearing. And we also learned along the way that bundling projects together and having a larger group allowed us to cover more projects, basically. In one of the segments of the county, we noticed a lot of projects on El Camino were coming up very high on the list for possibly, makes sense to everyone. And so we started doing multimodal project bundles on El Camino in each city as one project, rather than having 7 El Camino projects coming up. That way we were able to include more projects, but also then anything that was happening on El Camino would be a priority under this program. That might not necessarily translate directly for South County, because in many parts of the South County segment, El Camino is actually not within the 1 mile. It's interesting to look at the mapping for that. But being able to look at all of the projects that come together and identify options for bundling or projects that might be implemented together was also another lesson learned and something that we've implemented along the way.
Well,
That was one of my questions, is whether in addition to feedback from people, you look at how particular routes connect to other things and factor that in too.
yeah. Well, thank you for all the work. I mean, I think one of the consensus things here, did you have something, Kevin? Kevin had something. Excuse me, Commissioner Rennie.
Sorry, just
Please.
more. Yeah, right. My kids are 6 and 9. We ride our bikes a lot, and I've seen lots of success with the Palo Alto station. And there's a frontage road basically that you can take forevermore, or like pretty far. I forget exactly how far it was, and that's part of the connector. A lot of people, most people I know, going to the Menlo Park train station, drive and then take the train. If there's something that can be done, you're talking connections and things like that, that would be super helpful. And then to add to the Bay Trail, I ride to Sunnyvale on the Bay Trail, and it's extremely difficult to get there. But once I'm there, it's great. But getting back and forth, I cross over 236, 101 to get to my office. And it's just the comfort level is so low and scary. Something for sure needs to be done. And I have friends that have provided me feedback that work in South San Francisco, the biotech area, and they said I would take it if I could, but it's not there. So that it would be nice if there was more of a push for that. And then also, it's been decades, but the Dumbarton Corridor Bike and Pedestrian Trail that would connect the low income to jobs in Redwood City and other places. And I don't know if that's by Open Space Preserve or who's governing that at this point. I know it's bounced around a bunch of times, but that would be huge if that could be possible. So I would love to see that.
Kevin, can you repeat what was it called? Dumbarton?
The Dumbarton Corridor that goes from Redwood City, basically Meta was supposed to pay for a train that goes to Fremont and back, but that fell through.
Oh, okay.
And it's been bouncing around a bunch of times, and that basically car-free trail from Redwood City to the Bay. So
Okay, thank
that
you.
would be pretty huge. I know I don't know if there's funding or whatever, but
That's interesting. I see. Is that near like what's it called?
so across this Marsh Road is a big
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
And then right at
Yes,
Willow
yeah.
Road and Meta, it's right there too.
Yeah,
So
okay.
It's right next to the community center, the new Bellhaven Community Center, those tracks that run right along there on Chilka.
Yes, okay.
That's
So we're
the
just getting
same
back.
tracks.
Through the chair, provide feedback just on that one. That is a project that's in the project inventory for this. So it would have to go through the prioritization prioritization process. But separately, the TA has a regional transit connections grant program that's new this year. We actually just went to the board within the last few months with the recommendations for funding. And Samtrans received funding for, believe it's feasibility study for the Dumbarton corridor.
Oh,
So not the portion going across the bay, but the portion once on the land going through for feasibility efforts to look at that project more in depth. So yes, it's being looked at as a project within South County, and if it's one of the priority projects, then so be it. But also separately, it did recently receive funding for a study.
wonderful. Thank you for that. I just had, sorry, two more things. I just made a list. Just sidewalks in general. I know this, from the feedback I got as a private citizen, they're way too expensive to do. It's just out of this world, even to do like a tenth of a mile costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if there could be something there, I know there's projects and study that have been done over a decade ago and they just don't do them anymore. I don't know if there's more of incentive there. And then part two, there's Samtram stops that the city manages that kids take to school and they won't take them because they get flooded. They're in disrepair because the city manages them. If something could be done there as well, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. That's it.
I think this is so important. Thank you for your time because the residents, on the ground feedback and when they were biking around or, changing trains or whatever is really important. So I guess one thing I just want to say in closing is, thank you for all the outreach. The community outreach I think is so, so critical. We respect that you're doing it. We respect that it's informing your project. And thank you for coming here and listening to ours as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, have a good evening. We will now move on to the next item under regular business, which is item E3, which is to recommend to City Council to approve the Complete Streets Commission 2025-26 work plan. And Katrine Maki, our Senior Transportation Planner, will present this item. Thank you, Katrine.
I'm not gonna say it's a waste of time, but I'm gonna dive right into our red lines rather than walk you through a presentation. If we want, I can walk you, I'll pause and just kind of hear, if you guys want to give me your feedback, you can, or we can just go through from top to bottom and just talk about the edits. You can ask questions or provide additional comments, but kind of instead of a formal presentation, I figured it'd be better to spend the time just working on the red lines.
All right. Let me just get myself a bit organized. Sorry. If any commissioner has a comment on item 1 generally or what's redlined, you're welcome to start, make a comment. I had some, but I'm finding them, so I will do that. Oh, here we go. Aha. Found them. All right, does anyone, I don't want to be the first, but does anyone have anything they would like to add? Okay, I will go. In the last meeting, you all might remember that for this item 1, that second bullet there, advise and make recommendations, we discussed quite a bit. And I like the way it is now, which is making clear that we advise and make recommendations on both new and ongoing projects, and ongoing ones, and, excuse me, projects and also pilots. That's what was broken out between A and B. So I think that looks solid. It looks like for A, the language in the red, I believe, was added by staff between the June 11th meeting and today. So if we really need to look at that and see if we like the way it feels. For me, annually, without the change, it was annually evaluate and propose transportation projects to include in the 5-year capital improvement plan. And the comment I made at the last meeting was the reason I thought this was important was that very often if we discuss a major project like Middle Avenue or something, right? There's not enough budget for the sidewalks to be done. So we say, well, let's make sure we advocate to city council to include the sidewalks in the next 5-year capital improvement plan. And it sort of falls off the radar screen. So I liked that this gave us a goal to annually evaluate and think of projects that we want the city council to advise the city council to include in their 5-year capital improvement plan. I'd like to ask Katrine, what was the reason for adding from the TMP? Because if we leave it more generally there, I prefer it because we may be evaluating or proposing projects that are new and not yet included in the TMP.
Then it would require an amendment to the TMP to have it included.
Why?
So, because the TMP is our adopted plan for guiding us on which projects to fund and implement.
But every time a project comes up, like Middlefield or Willow.
They're all
Road-
in the TMP.
And this number 1 item, like its title is advise the city council on the implementation of the TMP. So everything in here would be connected to the TMP.
Well, it
Right.
could, but if we include the language, my concern is that we're not proposing projects to the city council, right? Because they're the ones who put together the 5-year capital improvement plan. The commission would not be proposing projects to the city council to include unless they're in the TMP. You're saying, well, we'd have to add them to the TMP. Is that a bureaucratic process? It takes a long time and who?
No,
approves
so if
it?
the project wasn't in the TMP, it would have to get added.
I know, what is
Yeah.
the process for adding it?
I believe you would bring it to commission, to the city council to amend the TMP, and the amendment would be adding the project.
But that's not possible that we'd have to go to the city council to amend the TMP because you just said that Willow Road and Santa Cruz Safety and Middlefield, all that's in the TMP. Did we go to the city council and say, please put Willow Road in the TMP?
They were already in it. So the TMP is a pretty comprehensive document with a map that has, I mean, it would be rare, I think, to have a project that we wanted to work on that wasn't in the TMP.
Well, okay, but what if the commission comes up with a new project that is really important based on safety data or based
Something
on
changes.
accidents?
Sure, yeah.
We would like to go to the city council and say, we'd like you to include this in the 5-year capital plan. It just happened 2 weeks ago.
But it would need to be in the TMP in order, because that's how the TMP is sort of the master document that we're drawing from to make improvements to the city so that we're doing it in a sort of like logical manner. And it's all in this big, long document. And
Right.
so,
But I'm worried we're going to be constrained by the fact that something's not listed in a document. If we want to advocate to the city council, that it should be included, should be funded in the immediate future. So I would strike the wording for that reason.
even though, but I hear what you're saying. It's just like that.
Well, then is there another place here that we can include that? So where it's clear that we can advocate to the city council to include important projects in the 5-year capital improvement plan that they have not yet added to the TMP?
Right. Where
Yeah.
would we add?
I mean,
something?
so, yeah, so under 2, if you're advising and providing input to the city council and citywide transportation policies and programs, so that's not projects.
Number 3 isn't about the TMP.
That's about major development projects. I mean, again, my example might be something as simple as crosswalk, tons of accidents, whereabout safety. This is the Complete Streets Commission. We're pitching to the city council on their budget meeting in 2 weeks. And I mean, I guess we could simultaneously ask them to add it to the TMP, but it seems like a bureaucratic hurdle.
I totally agree. I'm looking at the website. The TMP was last adopted November 17th, 2020. So it doesn't get updated.
I don't know how often it gets updated, but
Yeah.
right, it's already,
But you're saying it gets updated through the city council?
right. Or if we were to revisit the TMP and have a new, like, you would go through that whole process of the master planning process to create an update to the TMP, which would be a separate effort. I'm looking just to see how we would modify this language to include, so transport projects, because it needs to be a separate than one. I think
Right.
if we have it under one, so it's,
Can you just put future projects, TMP and future projects or something?
Well, you could put to number 2. No, that's not, my point is very narrow. It's specifically that I want to empower and enable this commission to recommend funding on projects that are pressing, maybe recently made more urgent.
so a hypothetical project that doesn't exist in the TMP. I'm sorry, I just missed what you meant about funding. So that
That
we would
we
need it in
should-
the plan so that it could receive funding.
If we are going in front of the city council to say, we would like to include in your 5-year capital improvement plan, a new urgent safety risk project, which I think is within our purview to do, we could say, and if you agree, please adopt it into the TMP. But right now, the way this is phrased, we wouldn't be able to do that because the project would not have been adopted yet. So I
Although-
guess it could say annually evaluate and propose transportation projects from the TMP or pending approval, city council approval to be included in the TMP, to include in the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Let's pause on editing the work plan and talk about the work. Does the work plan, I'm thinking the work plan is like our goals for the year, your goals for the year. And so I don't know that because it's not in the work plan, you wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, I would normally agree with that, but the way the red line changes are in item 3 are so incredibly specific that it makes me think that staff is going to rely on the work plan in terms of the scope of what we do.
We had we've had things come before us that are not like, that are like connected to our work. So like when Atherton came and gave the presentation about the Grand Bowl, like that's none of that is like, it's connected to us because we care about the connectivity of bike lanes. But I guess there are things that come before us and in the agenda setting meeting, like, is there room to have that discussion to say like, can we agendize this safety concern in the community? And then like, so then we can have the discussion about it. And that, I guess, is
What if someone
where we-
says no? right? Like, where is the yes and the no? Where is that decision made, is what I'm saying. So, do other people agree that this seems written so that we, not to be inclusive of going to the city council to pitch for budget around a new project that's not yet included in the TMP? Clearly, if they agreed and they put it in the budget, they would add it to the TMP.
I might suggest just maybe an additional point saying, advise on the implementation of the TMP and any possible improvements to the TMP that are necessary that arise in the course of our business. And it's included in advise the city council on. So if the whole point is advising the city council, that's where the resource allocation decisions are made. It could be on the implementation of the current plan or on any necessary updates to the plan. I'm looking at it also, this 2020 document, and I see a lot of the work that we've talked about is actually not in here. I don't know, it's 350 pages long, so I haven't assimilated all of it recently. I did look at it when I first joined, but it's now 5 years out of date. So I think it's reasonable to assume that there is going to be stuff in there that it goes beyond just implementing what we have, but also proposing additions to it in the context of advising the city council, who would have to accept those changes.
I'm wondering on line 1, I like what you added, but would it be possible to do implementation of the Transportation Master Plan, TMP, and any possible infrastructure improvements, period? Like, does it always have to link back to TMP? Or can we say infrastructure because that is what we do?
I don't think it needs to be, because they could be programmatic or policy. I don't know that we have to limit it.
Well, how about this? Thank you, commissioners. Back to Commissioner Raskoff's point, we could say, and any possible improvements and additions to the TMP.
And then we could also, I can remove this red text then. So that the two are in agreement, so to speak.
Okay.
So sorry, I cut you off. So any improvements and additions?
Yep.
And then I can strike this reject insertion. So now it's not written as.
Yes. I have one more proposed change for this, which is I don't think we need to say to further improve the citywide network of bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Okay. Again, I think that narrows what we can propose for funding to the council. And I don't know if it's necessary, for example, in the hypothetical I gave around, there's an intersection that's, unsafe and needs to be addressed. We wouldn't necessarily say we're trying to improve the network of bicycle improvement facilities. So that would be my other suggestion.
I can undo these if everyone else disagrees, for example. I'm not, but just so you guys can kind of see what's on the table.
Okay. That's my comment on number 1. Thank you for the comments on that. Does anyone have any comments on number 2? I know she wants to go really through the red line changes, but I appreciate if everyone just quickly skim. Mm-hmm. Does anyone have anything? The only thing I had here, 2 things under B, support projects serving community and regional based destinations. Just to make it slightly clearer, I think I'd say support projects that support safe routes to community and regional based destinations. I don't know if anyone agrees with that or.
Sure.
Okay. And again, please, if you don't agree with me. Yep.
Sorry, this is just standing out to me now, but in that first line for 2, advise and provide input to the city council on citywide transportation policies and programs, B, which we just discussed, doesn't necessarily go to that because it's community and regional based destinations. Could we get rid of citywide and just say advise and provide input to the city council on transportation policies and programs?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, on the second bullet there, say advise on Vision Zero strategies instead of advice. Thanks.
Thank you. I had it that way too, and someone else changed it.
Oh, no,
I
that's
was like,
okay. It's okay.
and then I was like, maybe they want us to provide input, provide advice.
Can I ask a
But
question?
yeah.
Can I ask a question about, I know we've talked about this and somebody's just gonna have to remind me why. Evaluate driveway stopping site distance policy to designate no parking zones as per the municipal code. Like, it's hard for me to understand that in the complete, like, it seems like such a thing where there's a book that has an answer to this. And so I guess in evaluate this, I'm confused about I think we're super smart and we know a lot up here, but my expertise of stopping distance site policy, like, is pretty low, right? Like, anyway, and so I'm just like, I know we've had this on here for like a year to have something, and then every time it comes up, it's sort of outside our purview. So I'm confused about that item.
I can remind you of what I've learned of the history of it. So there's been feedback from the commission that it wasn't a good use of your time to be evaluating that, and you kind of want to defer to staff expertise. And we weren't able to do that because the city council has designated the Complete Streets Commission as the body in charge of making those decisions. And so in order to, so it's more of like, it's something to take up with city council. And so I think it was determined to keep it on the work plan, to then take it up with city council to kind of see if there's any other solution to relieve yourself from the duty, I guess, you know.
Like, I don't, if that's part of what they want us to be doing, like, that's okay. It does seem a little bit like trying to give us something to do. Like, that's something that I feel like, again, there's a checklist somewhere that has the exact answer. And I feel like I'm just using my feelings to decide, like, gosh, that looks like it's pretty tight there. So yeah, we should definitely take away parking. And it should be based on something more than that, because otherwise it just gets appealed. And honestly, like, who needs more meetings to go to? Like,
I wonder
about
if one way to make this slightly more general and maybe oriented towards our, expertise would be to include the daylighting implementation in it, which is a related, policy question. And, obviously it's state law, but how it's implemented is very much city by city and intersection by intersection. And, I have now heard from the city of San Mateo, for example, that they're doing a data collection around intersections near the schools that require accelerated daylighting, implementations like red paint at the corners, for example. And that feels like something that we could collect from the community. I think, Oak Knoll, could benefit from this and several of the other schools. And then maybe we include the driveway question in this broader question of sight lines and, the daylighting question. And then that way it may feel a little bit less, very specific and not tailored to our contribution.
I could totally support that rephrasing, if that's allowed.
Help me to marry the two.
Well,
Because one is evaluating a policy per the municipal code, and the other one would be providing feedback on implementation of a state law.
yeah, it might have to be two separate points.
Yeah, yeah.
But because the driveway question is about individual property owners requesting exemptions, basically, and then that's been kind of delegated by the city council. But yes, exactly what you're doing there, Katrine.
And then Is this something that we would just write a note to city council and say like, by the way, can you rethink this?
Good question. Maybe you contact the city council liaison would be the start to just get feedback on the best way to
Mhm.
open that dialogue.
Is that still, is
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
deal? Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay.
Katrina, I have an odd memory that I thought this daylighting was in the first draft of our work plan and it was struck.
It was.
So did we strike it? Did the staff strike it? I'm not sure. Maybe there's a reason the staff.
We all agreed on it last month or last meeting, in that it pertained to state law. And so it had more
Okay.
to do with, there isn't a lot of decisions to make about the daylighting law because it's state law, but the way you phrased it had more to do with the implementation of marking and striping and signage.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's the nuance.
Okay. thank you.
Otherwise, I
That's
would have
very
been like, no, we
helpful.
already took that out, but that's a different approach
Okay.
than.
That's very helpful.
So it's not the enforcement that we don't have as much, that, state law, that's up to our police department.
So similarly, I see, so the bullet above that Commissioner Seabrand brought our attention to, evaluate driving, stopping, sight distance policy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Since her point was that it's not really our expertise, we're just sort of eyeballing it and saying we think that looks like a tight, bad sight line or something. Is it on the staff's list of things to do to establish or create a stopping sight distance policy? Is that,
So it's in the municipal code that it's any removal of parking,
yes,
so it's that policy in the municipal code.
yeah. And
It could be because of sightlines. I think it's just removal of parking. The municipal code doesn't specify why.
Okay.
That was language I received from the commission in terms of the language on driveway stopping sight distance policy. It could just be
That's
parking
fine. I
removal.
think this means you have the option to bring to us these questions, like the Bohannon. So we're just leaving it open that
Well,
this-
it's not even the option. I must bring it to you.
You must bring it to us. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. So that's what that is. But is it evaluate? Is it review a decision or a recommendation? Review driveway stopping, site distance recommendations, staff recommendations?
Well, there's two separate things here. So the one thing is that right now I'm required to bring to you the removal of parking spaces. You might have in your work plan that you don't want to do that anymore.
Oh, I see.
So that's those are kind of two separate things.
Okay, okay.
So this one is, I think, worded to the idea of that we want to evaluate the policy that this is under our, yeah.
Limit. Okay, understood. All
Right.
right.
We want to recommend that
I
staff
hope
come up
someone
with
wants more
one.
comment. Okay, understood. So are you happy with this concluding it now, Commissioner Seabrand?
I am. And, yeah.
Okay. The only other comment I had in section 2 was when I read this last bullet, I know it's been worked on a lot, but it feels to me like there's something missing because we're saying, if you just start from the top, it says like, this is our commission supports the implementation of safe routes infrastructure improvements and strategies. And then A is all about outreach, right? Like, let's engage the community, let's participate in a task force, let's improve the website content, let's develop an outreach strategy. I feel like it's missing, I was like scribbling before, but I feel like it's missing just some bullet that says advocate for safety improvements in school zones. You know what I mean? Or, review recommendations for safety improvements in school zones. Like, I feel like it's just sort of missing. Like, it says, we're going to participate and talk and outreach and improve communications, but kind of where's the program impact? I don't know if anyone else agrees with that. I just felt like that was somehow left out. So, does anyone think we should add, this is just what I scribbled earlier with, yeah. Or it could be like, review, advocate and evaluate or something. I just wrote advocate for safety improvements in school zones.
Sure.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
school zones is kind of referring to, I think it's kind of a standard like quarter mile from a school. I don't know if you want to, is that
I don't.
universal enough?
That is, I know in Vision Zero, it could say per Vision Zero plan if you want, because in Vision Zero, it does articulate school zones.
Oh, really?
Well, I think it has to do with like drop off and stuff too. Like, do you remember what the superintendent was saying? All those people around Ensign were working on like drop off.
Right.
And crosswalks. Do you want to say quarter mile within quarter mile or something?
It's just, it's different, if it's at the school site is different than if it's on the way to the school. So I just want to clarify what you mean.
I see.
Every street in town is on the way to a school.
It's, right.
But I kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe if you want to email us with some language about how to define a school zone.
We need to adopt this tonight.
Can we,
School zones and routes.
can we just say school zone?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, can we just?
let's just leave it at that.
And again, I don't see that, like, you're right. Sometimes we refer back to that to kind of just narrow our scope a little bit, but just because we word it this way doesn't mean like, oh, well, no, because I think we have safe routes here elsewhere. So it's, if you want to bring something up, I think it'll fit whether it's a route versus a zone, because they're both in here.
Sorry, just to clarify, so the B section says support projects serving safe routes to community and regional-based destinations to include schools. So how is advocate for safety improvements in school zones different?
Well, that's just routes. So that's specifically routes to a school, like, Olive Street, Santa Cruz Avenue, like Elder, like that all lead to Hillview. School zones means it can encompass like a crosswalk or a drop off or something like that, a sidewalk that is adjacent to a school.
Parking removal.
I see.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to encourage us to have the focus of, I know that in Vision Zero, it's high crash corridors is a big piece and school zones is a big piece. So I felt relevant to state in the plan. Is that, do you feel that you got your question answered okay? Okay. So I guess just one quick thing. So for B under 2 support projects, I think what I had was that, that provide or it wasn't serving. Support projects support projects that support is not very good. I guess it could be advocate for projects that support safe routes to community and regional based destinations. Is that okay? Okay. Okay.
And then we would get rid of advocate for safety improvements in school zones? Or is that a separate thing?
No, it's separate because this
Okay.
is about routes.
Okay.
Going to shopping and this is school zones is like a separate, it encompasses different elements. Okay. If no more comments on 2, does anyone have comments on 3?
One observation that I have just seeing some of the recent emails that we've received is that there seems to be some frustration that there hasn't been discussion of the Parkline project at the Complete Streets. And one question I guess I had for the group and for Katrine is like, what's the process for ensuring that these projects come before us? Like once they hit a certain threshold or once they have done an environmental study, and I don't know when that would have happened, if it should have happened, which seems right. Obviously, I've been following the project in my personal capacity, but I agree with the comments that probably should have been formally discussed here too. And that, I guess my question was like, how do we want to build that in? What's the process for including those on the agenda?
Same question.
Mhm.
Katrine, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, we have to tread carefully because Parkline has not been agendized. So we won't specifically comment on Parkline because we're not supposed to talk about it as a commission since it hasn't been on the agenda. Just putting that ground rule in. But we did talk about this at the last meeting, and that was the reason for my additional language in red at the end of 3 to specify when it would get brought, because there was discussion about. So I think there's 2 key things. One is that we baseline are deferring to the planning commission for making these decisions. When it has to do with transportation impact to our public streets, then that is there's language right now from the city council about the Complete Streets Commission that references major development projects. So that's where there's a little bit of overlap. And so what we are currently doing as staff, like what has been past practices. So an example would be when I think it was Facebook at the time, but when Meta had the project in Bellahaven, there was, I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the project, but it was an example that it did get Willow Village. It got brought to you because it required a modification to the city's general plan circulation element. So there was something in that project, the Paseos, that changed the circulation element and required a modification to the circulation element. So that was the trigger of why it got brought to the Complete Streets Commission. Other projects that don't require a modification to the circulation element don't necessarily come to you because there isn't something to look at from a transportation perspective because they are in alignment with the city's general plan. The last piece then is language to tell you when the appropriate time is to come, because there's been some lessons learned that I think projects have been brought to you after EIR, for example, where, and then the commission makes suggestions, but it's not really the right time to make suggestions. And so the appropriate time for, it's hard because I think things change after it gets brought to you if they bring it to you too early. There's no perfect solution. But the best time is during the planning entitlement phase, when the project is subject to discretionary review. That's when there's decisions to be made, when it's early enough for comments to have a impact.
Katrine, can you say that one more time? It should only come to us if there is a something off with
if it's not an agreement with the city's general plan circulation element. And so I actually originally had it worded as not an agreement, and it was recommended to me by planning staff that I actually would change. Oh, yeah, so it said is not consistent. That strike out, so instead to say requires modifications or an amendment to the city's general plan circulation element makes it a lot more specific so that
Yeah,
it's
because
clear.
I've been on this commission for 4.5 years, and there's only been one project, as you mentioned, in May of 2022, Willow Village, that I guess was inconsistent with the general plan circulation element. So if there's one in 4.5 years, that's how often we would be even permitted to review a plan based on the transportation aspects of a major development. I just want that to be clear to the other commissioners.
And we did also, just to understand the language that's here, add in the words or other plans so that if it required a change to the transportation master plan, it doesn't hold us just to the circulation element.
Oh, okay.
So I have a bit of a feedback on this. I've thought a lot about this, and I have read the letters that came through from the public to us and also received other members of the public talking about this directly. And I think it really goes back to what the purpose of our commission is. We work hard to bring a resident perspective into the decisions that the city council makes. And I think that we bear a lot of responsibility of representing that perspective as the city makes really, really big decisions and small ones. And I think we add a lot of value in that regard. And so on some philosophical level, I'm very confused why when it comes around to making the biggest decisions the city council has to make around massive developments that will greatly impact transportation, circulation, traffic, parking, bike and ped, all modes of transportation, why this commission would then be excluded from commenting. If I'm commenting on middle, why am I not allowed to provide a resident's perspective on the most important projects that will have the biggest transportation impacts on the city? So my proposal here is I would not approve this work plan based on number 3. If number 3 were left in, I would not be able to approve the work plan tonight. There's a couple of issues I have with it. First of all, providing input and recommendations to the city council. The most ideal time for this commission to review a major development project and provide transportation-related feedback is right before that project goes to the planning commission. That's not too early. That's right when the planning staff of this city has teed it up. It's about to be reviewed. And at that point, I think the planning commission would greatly benefit from hearing from us about, our taking a deep dive and looking at that plan at the most granular level about what kinds of transportation impacts we think it would have on the city, and whether we think it supports the priorities of the city council. The city council has asked us in our charter to advise them on transportation in this city, and by leaving us out of this, we are not performing the job they asked us to do. Katrine earlier referenced the city council making reference to the fact that part of the role and responsibility of this commission is to advise on city major development projects. So I want to read that to everyone. This was passed by the City Council's policy CC 24-004. It was adopted on February 13th of last year, 2024. It talks about all the policies and procedures that the different commissions have to follow. And then on page 7, it talks about the roles and responsibilities of the commissions. This was reviewed and passed by the City Council, as mentioned. And the first commission they talk about is Complete Streets. And the first thing the City Council says is, the Complete Streets Commission is charged primarily with advising the City Council on realizing the city's adopted goals for Complete Streets, Vision Zero, Climate Action Plan, and provide input on major land use and development projects as it relates to transportation. I don't think there's anything unambiguous about that. And I do believe it was a mistake not to have us review Parkline before it went to planning. I think that was an omission, and it's regrettable. So in relation to Parkline, specifically, I would like to request that it be agendized and added to our September meeting. Obviously, since the Planning Commission will have already reviewed it, we will just be making comments instead of any sort of motion to the City Council, because the City Council is meeting to review the planning's recommendations on September 30th. So that's not possible, but at a minimum, I think that this commission should have a staff presentation on Parkline given to us so we know what's going on as the city's only transportation commission, and so we can fulfill our role in advising council on the transportation impacts of Parkline, and that this commission and all its members will be prepared to present as individuals at the City Council meeting on September 30th with informed points of view on the impacts that Parkline may have, positive and negative. It's a shame and it's disappointing that that didn't happen previously, but I think this Plan B equips this commission to do its job that the council's asked it to do, and to present informed comments about Parkline. So I have 2 points there. One is I think Parkline, I'm strongly recommending Parkline, we be given a presentation about Parkline at our September meeting. And second of all, I don't agree with point 3, and I honestly think point 3 should just be replaced with the exact language that was approved by the City Council. And I'll repeat it again. The Complete Streets Commission is charged primarily, et cetera, and to provide input on major land use and development projects as it relates to transportation. Speaking to the point that Commissioner Raskoff said right off the jump was, what would be the criteria? How would you determine for this commission whether it's a major land use project enough for us to review it before planning did? So my personal opinion, based on what I perceive to be the impact of these projects on the city, and I think many residents would agree with me, I do think we should be reviewing the final proposal before it goes to planning for the housing development downtown based on the transportation impacts and review those. And certainly anything that might occur with Willow Road. But I do think we're at a point now where we need to get clear on this about what our role is. Right now, it's been back and forth with a lot of language, but once I read the approved document from the city council, it made it very clear to me that they expect us to play this role, and I think it's better for the city that we do. I don't think any other commission is in a position to assume the responsibility of reviewing for transportation impacts with the focus and commitment that we would, and those impacts could have an enormous influence on the future of the city and its residents who we represent. So that's what I would put in for that bullet. Are there any comments on that?
Sally, did I capture in my number 4 there? Is that reflecting your request?
Let me just read it to provide input.
It's actually as it relates to transportation, not to the
Yeah,
commission.
to provide input on major land use
think we'll
and
just read
development
provide.
projects as it relates to transportation.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish my point around Commissioner Raskoff. So what would constitute a major land use and development project? I think that it would be quantifiable. It could be quantifiable. I don't exactly know what the process is in the city to define something that the city council has approved. Perhaps it's something as simple as the city council having a vote on their agenda, or before we could figure it out, but for them to just say, yes, we believe that, the commission, Complete Streets could see this. But I think I need a bit more information about how those processes work generally with Menlo Park before I recommend procedure for that, but I don't think it would be complicated. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Did anyone think this language is okay?
I support that.
It's as they relate to transportation.
Thank you.
And I mean, it's right out of the city council adopted, so I fully support that.
We could even, between now and the presentation of this document in September to the city council, we could have a quick subcommittee to figure out what the appropriate, working with staff with the appropriate way to define major development or to create a process to
Did
approve
the
it.
city council define it in there anywhere? I mean, while they're giving us the language for everything else.
No, it just
Okay.
says major land use and development projects.
Okay.
And by the way, I did notice that this exact sentence from, if we go back to a minute.
Wait, is it major land use development projects? I don't know that matters, but
I'll just read it one more time. Provide input. I think sorry, Scott, I think input is defining that but here we go. Provide input on major land use and development projects as I think the input relates to transportation.
It should be they and not it. I know it says
That's
it,
totally fine.
but
I think that they is talking about the projects, not input.
I think they mean the input we're providing relates to transportation only.
input on major land use and developments
As
projects
it,
as
the input.
they. No, but we're providing input on land use and development projects as they relate to transportation, right?
or as your input relates.
Right. Well,
Do we want to, sorry, I know we really do get into the weeds on words and
That's
stuff, but
weird.
do people think it's it or they? Matthew, Kevin, anyone? I think it says the input relates, so I think it's it.
provide input on major land use as they relate to transportation. Okay.
We're divided. Well,
That's fine.
let's stick with the city
It's
council
fine.
language.
Whatever they
Stick-
said, it's fine.
City council language is it relates,
Yeah.
so. Okay. fine.
Okay. Sold.
Yes, and if there's any concern from staff about this is too broad, we don't know what you mean, you're going to want to review everything, I would suggest that between now and the presentation of this document to the city council, we
Yeah, hopefully there's not a problem. I don't know. But if there's a chance we'd have to call a special meeting with a quorum to amend what we've adopted tonight.
Or could we have, I'm sorry, I don't mean to say that that's not the right thing. I'm just trying to think through the alternatives. If we had 3 people in a subcommittee work with you and say, okay, here's how we would define major land use, and then could we send it out by email to everyone?
I think we
Is
have
that
to
better?
adopt it in a public
Okay,
meeting.
right, yeah, so I guess we would, well, let's see.
But I mean, because this language is the same
Yeah.
that the council gave you, I can't imagine
Okay.
that, I mean, to me, that passes a gut check. It's the same language they gave you, so.
Okay.
You're just telling them back that you're going to put in your work plan what they gave you to do. So, I think if we need to add detail, that's something that needs to come from the commission, or we need to work out where the right answer is. And I think that answer is appropriate to come from the council, the city council, to clarify what this language really intends if they're not okay with it in the work plan, you know?
And I mean, I would suggest just based on the emails that we've gotten, that if you're going to have a Complete Streets Commission, it makes it the place that people who are concerned about transportation-related questions, they come to you, and they're not interested in an answer that says, oh, that doesn't affect the circulation plan, so we don't talk about those, right? And so like, I just think for the sake of the city, it's a lot easier to be able to say like transportation questions, big transportation questions go through Complete Streets. And that is like your part of your outreach, which is always an area that they're, trying to sort of meet the bar on. So I think in terms of outreach, if nothing else, it provides another public input on things that people have a lot of strong feelings about.
I don't think we need to add this, but it crossed my mind, so I'm going to say it out loud just for the benefit. Provide input to the city council. The one thing to remind you is so you wouldn't ever be giving input to the planning commission, for example. I don't think we need to add it, but I'm just making sure we all understand. That just goes back to you are an advisory body to the council, not necessarily to another commission.
I might consider adding that,
Okay.
I don't know.
just to make it clear. Sorry.
I was just going to say, what's the difference between major land use and development projects? Should it be and or? So we don't.
I think for that, I probably would prefer to keep the major land use and development projects language just because it was the language of the city.
Okay.
council.
Just
Okay,
making-
yeah.
Cool. Makes sense. Thanks.
I'm not quite sure what the difference is either. I think part of my motivation in raising this, so people know, is that I think there's just been a lot of sideways discussion on this and a lack of clarity. And I get concerned that if we start saying, well, it has to be an exception to this rule and that we never have a voice. And I do believe that the council appoints us to bring to them, thoughtful consideration, deep consideration of these issues and the resident voice, and that it is exactly in our purview according to the council's policy. Okay. So does anyone have any other comments on 4 or 5? Anything, and the redlining, of course, as for Katrine's request to address those sections. I did have a question for you, Katrine, on, I'm sorry, I don't remember, but number 4, supporting the council's initiative to improve access to downtown. So in the last meeting, we added review bike lanes.
Let me look at the old version. I think so.
I guess, oh, yes, you gave me that red line copy. I wasn't really sure what that meant, but
It may have come from the ad hoc subcommittee too. I don't have a version of each version. along
right,
the way.
no. So it's been a lot. Yeah, no worries. Okay, I don't remember either. All right, let's just do that. And then, so we're done. Okay, yes. So I just want to mention really quickly, if folks haven't, I actually printed out copies. I'll give everyone at the end of the meeting. But I actually recently read through carefully the Climate Action Plan Strategy Number 4 actions. It's a list of 10 actions that are in the city's Climate Action Plan that relate to transportation. And it was really, I'm sorry, I hadn't read it previously. It was extremely informative to see what the city had put into their plan. And when I looked at the work plan, I didn't, we certainly don't want to redo this, but I was like, oh, look at that. The city wants us to do this. Is that reflected in the work plan? But either way, one thing I did notice, and we've sort of talked about it off and on over the past couple of years, is this networks. For one point, the first one, multimodal networks, continue to implement the Transportation Master Plan to build connected and safer multimodal transportation networks that make walking, biking, and transit viable for more trips locally and regionally. Now, I'd love to know, and the people who bike a lot will be able to have better input than me, but we had a thought about, should we have a subcommittee, the way we did with bike rack inventory last year, should we have a subcommittee that says, we want to map out what the bike ped networks are in the city. We want to create a big map. We want to map them out. This is going to help us see the gaps. This is going to help us advocate to fill in the gaps. And maybe in the end, we're going to have a map that's extremely helpful for people who bike and walk around the city as, here are the best places to do that. And here's how to get from place to place. Is that something that of value work that this commission could perform, or is that something that doesn't sounds like people are getting it in other ways, and that's not really that useful? I feel very neutral about it, but I just wanted to raise that it was something that kind of keeps popping up. Any thoughts?
So most people, I use an application called Strava, and there's what's called a heat map, which basically shows where people routes use. And I think most people use that, and then there's recommendations made for those types of things. I think they'd probably go to that instead of using our mapping system. So, but if anybody, yep.
Okay, good, thank
But
you.
I was just, to add to that, I was just going to say, we could protect those routes more, or if we want to change to a more protected,
Oh, just building on that, Strava actually has a product that they give to cities and entities. I think we have access to it. It's a data set. And it's different than the consumer product because it aggregates, the information in a different way. And I think it actually has mechanisms for flagging safety concerns. I don't know, Katrina, I see you nodding, like you're a user of this. I would love.
I have an
perspective.
account, like a municipal account, to view the data.
It might be interesting to have a presentation, on what data are available, at the planning level, because obviously, we haven't seen that. But I think it might.
It's not terribly different than the consumer
okay.
heat map. It looks a lot the same. I think what they're trying to do is compensate for the fact that not all riders are using Strava. And so I think there might be a little bit of rebalancing that happens in the background. Like, I think they're trying to weight the commute trips, and they play, I think, with the dials, but the end view, I don't know that I could tell you, looks a whole lot different than what you might see on your Strava heat map because I have both, and they're more or less the same. Okay. What I think it does, it gives you access to, like, if I wanted to load that into my GIS and do some complex analysis, there's just there's a tool to make it more useful from a GIS perspective, but I don't know that the data set looks different. So.
Got it. I do think your point about the gaps, though, Sally, is very important. Like, you can't see the gaps in the data. You just see people circumventing the gaps and, like, going, on some back route. You don't necessarily understand why, and, like, where there should be a corridor that doesn't yet exist. Like, that feels important. And, like, that can't be just generated with the as-is data. That's more, it would require a different methodology.
I'm glad thank you for saying that. I don't want to let that one drop either. I think this meeting, in a lot of ways, a couple meetings we have make me feel this way, make me think, gosh, I really appreciate the people on this commission because you guys really are eyes and ears, and you're looking more carefully and with more, alert attention to where the problems are and how they could be fixed. And maybe we just need to have a focus group of power bikers in the city and just say, please come and tell us where the gaps are, like you did tonight around when you go on the Bay Trail. And just at least have that, as identified from a residents and users perspective. We're not saying, oh, we're going to fix them all tomorrow, but we're saying we want to identify them and we want to hear from the community. That might be the sort of best way to crowdsource it. But I do think that keep believing that the resident feedback and the eyes and ear feedback is, I think, very important to our ability to make change. So maybe we can brainstorm about that, Matthew. I'd love to help on that or help make it happen because I do think it's very important. The gaps are kind of the reason sometimes you don't go on a bike. I guess I just want to, I know we're running late. Thank you everyone for your time and attention to this. When I look at number 5, this is why I handed out the climate action plan strategy, number 4, all 10 actions, is because at the very top of this strategy number 4, you'll see it says, CAP strategy number 4, reduce vehicle miles traveled, VMT, by 25% or an amount recommended by the Complete Streets Commission. Did you know that we have that delegation? So I believe someone mentioned to me that it wasn't even clear necessarily that VMT was the right measure to quantify the impact on climate action from the different policies that the city would adopt. So that part of what Complete Streets have to do is I think that is encompassed in this new redlined language. Katrina, let me know if I'm on the right track, but evaluate, right? The
You're
metric.
absolutely right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it sounds like city staff is suggesting that Complete Streets evaluate. Is it meant to be VMT? Is that the right metric we want to use? Is it a different metric to measure progress? And that's a big responsibility for this commission to take on. Again, we'll talk about this in another meeting, but I'd recommend a subcommittee on that, people who really are going to focus and make a recommendation. But if that's something that's still not clear, whether we're using that metric or not, I think that's definitely could be a good focus for this year to clarify that. Okay, so that's in there. Thank you for adding it. Recommend and evaluate projects and policy expand access. Yep. Prioritize organizations. Yep. Okay. So I'm fine with that. I just wanted to give the context to evaluate metric and the fact that it's actually stated at the top of the plan. Does anyone have any other comments on the work plan?
My comment on number 5, and this has driven me utterly wild for a while, is that there is no timeline on that. So reduce vehicle miles traveled, whether.
It's 2030?
Yes, I have heard 2030 multiple times. It is not
Stated?
written there. To me, it should 100% be written into the action
Yes.
and not just if there's no timeline.
So should we say set specific?
I would love that because I know we can't go back into the CAP to add it. I've always heard that it was 2030. I actually went back through, I don't know, like a month or 2 ago when it was driving me nuts. And
Well, I do think though that when you evaluate that metric, make a recommendation on whatever the new unit will be of measurement and then what the goal will be associated with that. I think it will be a recommended amendment to the CAP.
okay,
So they will
Okay.
amend it and they're really looking for the direction from the commission to help them on what that amendment will be.
oh, that's exciting.
So
Okay,
yeah, you will change it.
okay, thank you.
I just want, so you went back and you looked at the climate action plan and it didn't say anything in the plan generally about, okay, that's fascinating.
Nothing specific to this, to number 4.
Goals and stuff. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Oh, here we go.
I think it's implied
Oh.
because the title is 2030, but it's just implied.
So very interesting. It looks like they've, in some, this is number 4, strategy 4. It looks like in strategy 1, they assigned a date to, strategy 2, they assigned a date to. So some they're assigning dates to, and this one they did not. Interesting. Okay. It drives Commissioner Bergen-Bailey nuts. Okay, I don't have anything else on this work plan. Does anyone else have any comments at all? No. Okay, Katrine must be very excited to hear that. And the other thing I just want to say is, yes, I have made a bit of a bold recommendation around agendizing Parkline on next month's agenda. But the reason I would like to see that happen is that I do think it's a very important project. It's quite complex. I do think this commission has the motivation and the ability to take a close look at it. And if commissioners want to go to the city council and give some directed and focused recommendations or opinions around the transportation piece of it. And I don't think we are really in a position to do that unless we sit down and see a staff presentation on really only the transportation aspects. You know, I think that's all that we would be commenting on. I know that's all that we'd be commenting on. So that's my recommendation. I don't know if other people want to comment or feel that's valuable. It might be helpful for Katrine to know if other people think that would be a valuable use of the commission's time.
The microphone isn't catching you. I didn't hear the last part. It just,
Oh, I'm
the
so
microphone
sorry.
wasn't picking up. Yeah.
Just, I thought if other people on the commission, you know, no pressure at all, you know, want to say they don't think that's a good use of the commission's time next in September, or they do think it would be a good use of the commission's time to prepare so that we could have a close look at Parkline and transportation aspects of Parkline and be prepared to comment to the city council if we so choose at the meeting on September 30th. Do people think that's a good use of our time right now? And thoughts?
I believe that Chair Irakomas and I will also be presenting on the bike rack survey, as we need to go through this commission first before presenting to council.
Okay.
And we were talking about work plans. We could, or sorry, the ad hoc subcommittees, but we could change the timing of that if
Well,
we're getting too full.
I would, yeah, I think Parkline is a really big project for the city and it's about to be, you know, set in stone. So I think that would take precedence over subcommittees. If it's useful, I'd be happy to, just like we had a work plan subcommittee, I'd be happy to work with some other people on a subcommittee, ad hoc subcommittee, so that we can come to the October meeting with recommendations with you. We could run them by you as well about subcommittees. Is that useful to come? Yeah, meaning like to come to October and say, here's the 5 we think should happen. Does anyone agree or disagree? Is that advanced?
Let's dig in the agenda setting meeting and we can kind of.
Yeah, sure.
Because I sent you a draft of the staff report already so that.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry, I have not looked at that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you could see if it's necessary based on that and.
Okay, great. That's a better approach. Thank you. All right. All right. Any other comments? Anyone else? Nope. Okay. I will adjourn the meeting then at.
Oh, no.
Oh. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
And then we need a call for public
I was
comment.
like,
Well, there isn't any, but we still
Sorry,
have to call for it.
public, members of the public, please forgive me. I am. I was aware that we've been going over, so. if everyone can just be a
telepathically
little
agreed,
patient
so,
with me
you
while
know.
I go back to the, all right, so, Katrine, would you call for public comments on this item?
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature. Or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. If you are participating in person, please fill out a speaker card from the back table, bring it to the clerk's desk, and please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. Having no one in the queue for public comment, I return the meeting to the chair.
Thank you. Is there any further commission discussion? It has to be on the work plan. Okay. Do I have a motion and a second to accept the work plan with the changes we've made this evening? Motion to accept from Commissioner Bergen-Bailey and a motion to approve. Am I even, sorry. A second to accept the work plan from Commissioner Rennie. So let's take a vote. Let's vote on the stated motion. All in favor, please raise hand, say aye. Aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you. Informational items. Under informational items, city staff provides an update on matters of importance to the commission. Informational items are not action items. However, a commissioner, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. The first informational item tonight is update on major project status. Katrine, do you have an update on a major project?
I do. The
Ooh.
Coleman pilot project has been installed. I can't remember. I don't think it was at the last meeting. So yay. And Middle Avenue, the Complete Streets project is mid installment. It's not complete, but it is active. And about to begin is the crossing improvement at El Camino Real in Ravenswood. That was, yeah.
Gosh.
I can't tell you exactly when, but I know it's coming.
My son and I were just talking about that today when there was a woman with a stroller crossing where there was no crosswalk. We were like, no.
So it was a couple commission meeting or a couple council meetings ago that the project was awarded. And so it's slated to happen this summer. It's just-
Fantastic. That's
yeah.
such a great update. We should all really thank you, staff, because pushing these things forward requires a lot of work, and we appreciate your dedication and persistence, which is what it takes. All right, then, Katrine, would you call for public comments on this project status update?
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature. Or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. If you are participating in person, please fill out the speaker card from the back table, bring it to the clerk's desk, and please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. There is no one in queue for public comment. I return the meeting to the chair.
Thank you, Katrine. The next item is committee subcommittee reports. Subcommittees, do you have any reports or updates?
No. I was just gonna, can I jump in?
Please do.
I'm just going to jump in. I did want to re-invite all of the commissioners. This Saturday, we have our 3rd annual practice ride to Hillview. Everybody is invited. Myself and Commissioner Raskoff will be there wearing our parent hats. That's a fun one. It's just a really
Can you
nice time.
send the deets? about
I can
where we have
send
to
that.
be
I
and
certainly
stuff?
can.
Okay.
And then I did want to also kind of bounce off of Commissioner Raskoff's earlier comment about getting Parkline on our agenda. I've certainly heard from community members about El Camino. Folks who are really enjoying having it in having protected bike lanes in the Palo Alto portion. And I've been asked many times when that will be happening in Menlo Park. And I am wondering if that will be hitting our meeting or our agenda sometime soon.
I'm pausing because I'm trying to remember the exact date. I believe the GBI, the Grand Boulevard Initiative staff reached out to present, and
Yes.
I'm just cringing because I feel like it might have been September where we're like, yeah, that sounds like a great time to go.
Actually, I think it was October.
Maybe it was October. That would be great. Hopefully it's
Yeah.
October. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was October. Yes, so the Grand Boulevard Initiative, which we heard about, as Katrine said, when Atherton presented to us around their bike lane plan, is coming to talk to us about the initiative, which is kind of reigniting. All right, then, well, I noticed in last week's, or whenever the last adjournment was 8:46. So look, we're adjourning the meeting at 8:40, early. Thank you, everyone, for all your good discussions and service to the city. See you next time.